The stars look different from here. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty, watching the massive structure grow larger on the screen. The Andromeda Trade Hub stretched for miles in every direction, its silver towers and spinning rings catching the light from 3 different suns. After 18 months of travel through the dark void of space, humanity had finally reached the center of galactic civilization. "Captain, we're getting multiple signals," said communications. "Officer Lisa Rodriguez from her station." "They're not using any language we know, but the computer is trying to translate." Jake nodded, his hands gripping the rail in front of him. This was the moment they had all been waiting for. Earth's first contact with alien life. The moment that would change everything for the human race. "Any luck with the translation?" he asked. Lisa frowned at her screen. "Some of it is coming through now, sir. They're asking us to identify ourselves and state our purpose. They sound ... formal." "Open a channel," Jake ordered. "Let's introduce ourselves to the galaxy." The main screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at something that definitely wasn't human. The alien had blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the light, and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on its face. When it spoke, its voice was like wind through metal pipes. "Unknown vessel, you have entered restricted space. Identify your species and point of origin immediately." Jake stepped forward, trying to look confident. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Liberty. We come from the planet Earth in the Sol System. We seek peaceful contact with the galactic community." The alien's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, and there was a long pause. Finally, it spoke again, and its voice seemed colder than before. "Earth, Sol System. We have no record of this species or system in our databases. You claim to seek peaceful contact, yet you arrive in a military vessel? This is suspicious." "We mean no harm," Jake replied quickly. "This ship is for exploration, not war. We simply want to learn about other civilizations and share knowledge." The alien made a sound that might have been laughter, but it wasn't friendly. "Share knowledge? You primitive beings have nothing to offer the galactic community. Your technology is crude, your society is violent, and your history is written in blood." Jake felt his jaw tighten. "How do you know about our history?" "We have been watching your species for some time," the alien replied. "Your radio transmissions, your entertainment, your news broadcasts. We have seen your wars, your weapons, your constant fighting. You are exactly what the galaxy does not need." Behind Jake, Chief Engineer Danny Walsh muttered something under his breath. Medical Officer Karen Bell looked shocked. The alien's words stung because they weren't entirely wrong. Humanity did have a violent history, but they had also learned from it. "We've grown beyond our past," Jake said. "We come in peace." "Peace?" The alien's voice rose. "Your vessel carries weapons. Your crew wears military uniforms. Your very presence here is an act of aggression. Species like yours have tried to join our community before. They always bring chaos and destruction." Another alien appeared on the screen, this one tall and thin with silver skin and no visible eyes. When it spoke, its voice was like distant thunder. "I am High Coordinator Vashtar of the Zephyrian Council. You will identify yourself to our security forces and submit to immediate quarantine. Your species will be evaluated for potential threat." Level, Jake felt his stomach drop. This wasn't going the way they had hoped. "We're not here to cause trouble. We just want to talk." "Talk?" Vashtar's voice carried what sounded like disgust. "Your species talks with weapons and violence. We have seen your wars, your constant conflicts. You fight over resources, territory, beliefs. You cannot even achieve peace on your own world, yet you dare to venture into ours." "That's not fair," Lisa spoke up from her station. "You're judging us based on our past, not who we are now." "Your past is what you are," Vashtar replied coldly. "A species that has known only war and conflict. You developed faster than light. Travel not for exploration, but to escape the destruction you brought upon your own world. We will not allow you to bring that destruction here." Jake stepped closer to the screen. "You're wrong about us. Yes, we've had wars. Yes, we've made mistakes. But we've also learned to work together. We've built a united Earth government. We've ended poverty and disease. We've learned to live in peace. Peace? The first alien made that sound again, the one that might have been laughter. Your peace is built on the threat of violence. Your police carry weapons. Your military remains strong. This is not peace. This is merely the absence of current war. Sometimes strength is necessary to maintain peace. Jake replied. The moment the words left his mouth, he knew he had made a mistake. Both aliens recoiled as if he had struck them. There, Vashtar said, his voice filled with triumph. You reveal your true nature. You believe that violence is the answer to problems. This is exactly what we expected from your species. That's not what I meant, Jake protested. It is exactly what you meant, Vashtar continued. You believe that fear and force create peace. This is the thinking of a primitive, violent species. The galactic community has maintained true peace for over 3,000 years without such barbaric concepts. Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. They all looked as confused and frustrated as he felt. This was supposed to be humanity's great moment, their entry into a larger universe filled with wisdom and friendship. Instead, they were being treated like criminals. What do you want us to do? He asked finally. You will dock at Quarantine Station 7 on the outer rim of the hub, Vashtar ordered. You will remain there while we decide what to do with you. Your options are simple. Return to your home system and never venture beyond it again, or face the combined military might of the galactic community. You're threatening us with war while calling us violent? Danny Walsh spoke up from his station. We do not make war, the first alien replied. We maintain order. There is a difference. Not from where I'm sitting, Danny muttered. Jake held up a hand to quiet his engineer. We'll comply with your quarantine, but we're not leaving until we've had a chance to prove that humanity deserves a place in the galactic community. You have nothing to prove and everything to lose, Vashtar said. Your species arrived too late. The galaxy has moved beyond the need for warriors and fighters. We have evolved past such base instincts. Maybe, Jake replied. But maybe the galaxy needs us more than you think. The alien's 4 eyes fixed on him with what looked like contempt. Follow the beacon to Quarantine Station 7. Any deviation from the assigned course will be considered an act of aggression. End transmission. The screen went dark, leaving the bridge in silence. Well, Lisa said finally, that went better than expected. How do you figure? Karen asked. They didn't shoot us on sight, Lisa replied with a weak smile. Jake turned to face his crew. They all looked tired and disappointed, and he couldn't blame them. They had traveled so far and hoped for so much, only to be treated like unwanted guests. At best, dangerous criminals at worst. Danny, take us to the quarantine station, he ordered. Lisa, send a message back to Earth. Tell them we've made contact, but the situation is ... complicated. What are we going to do, Captain? Karen asked. Jake looked back at the screen, now showing the massive alien station growing larger as they approached. Somewhere in that structure were thousands of beings from dozens of worlds, all united in their belief that humanity had no place among them. We're going to prove them wrong, he said quietly. Somehow, the Liberty moved slowly toward the outer rim of the station, carrying the hopes and dreams of an entire species toward an uncertain future. Behind them, the galaxy watched and waited, convinced that these late arrivals would bring nothing but trouble to their perfect, peaceful world. They had no idea how right they were about to be. 3 months had passed since the Liberty first arrived at the Andromeda Trade Hub, Captain. Jake Morrison had spent those months in the cramped quarters of Quarantine Station 7, watching as more human ships arrived from Earth. Each new vessel brought colonists, supplies, and hope for a better future among the stars. Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster stood on the bridge of the colony ship New Frontier, looking down at the brown and green world of Kepler 442b. Her ship carried 3,000 colonists who had left everything behind on Earth to start fresh on this distant world. They had been traveling for over 2 years, and this planet was supposed to be their new home. Ma'am, we're getting a transmission from the surface, reported her communications officer. It's Pete Johnson, the colony leader? Amy nodded. Put him through. The screen flickered to life, showing a middle-aged man with dirt on his face and sweat on his brow. Behind him, Amy could see the basic structures of the new colony, simple buildings made from local materials and prefabricated. Parts from Earth. Commander Foster, thank goodness you're here, Pete said, relief clear in his voice. We've been having some trouble with the soil composition, but Helen Adams thinks she's figured out a solution. We're going to need those new farming machines you brought. They're ready to go, Pete. How many people do we have on the surface now? About 500, Pete replied. The rest are still living in the temporary shelters, but we're making progress. This world is tough, but it's good land. With the right work, we can make it bloom, Amy smiled. This was what the colonists had dreamed of, a chance to build something new, something better. We'll start landing the rest of the supplies tomorrow. Keep up the good work. As the transmission ended, Amy felt a sense of pride. These people had given up everything for a chance at a new life. They deserved to succeed. Commander. Her sensor officer called out, I'm picking up multiple contacts approaching from the outer system. They're big and they're moving fast. Amy's blood ran cold. Can you identify them? They're Zephyrian warships, ma'am. A full battle group. They're heading straight for us. Within hours, the new frontier was surrounded. The Zephyrian ships were massive, their hulls gleaming silver in the light of the system's sun. Amy counted at least 12 vessels, each one larger than her colony ship, the main screen activated, showing the familiar figure of High Coordinator Vashtar. His silver skin seemed to glow with anger. Human vessel, you are in violation of galactic law. This system has been claimed by the Zephyrian Collective. You will remove your people from the surface immediately and depart this system. Amy stepped forward, trying to keep her voice steady. High Coordinator, we've been here for 6 months. Our people have built homes, planted crops, started families. This is our home now. Your home is Earth, Vashtar replied coldly. You have no right to claim worlds that belong to others. Your species was told to remain in your own system. This planet was uninhabited when we arrived, Amy protested. We checked the galactic databases. There was no claim on this world. The claim was filed 3 days ago, Vashtar said. It is now legally ours. You have 24 hours to evacuate all human presence from this world, or we will remove you by force. Amy felt anger rising in her chest. You filed a claim on a world we were already living on? That's not legal by any standard. It is legal by galactic law, Vashtar replied. Your species has no rights under that law. You are not recognized. Members of the galactic community. The transmission ended, leaving Amy staring at a blank screen. Around her, the bridge crew looked shocked and angry. Ma'am, what are we going to do? Asked her executive officer. Amy looked out at the planet below. Down there, 500 people were living their lives, building their dreams. They had greenhouses full of growing food, workshops where they made tools and furniture, schools where children learned about their new world. She couldn't just abandon them. Get me Pete Johnson, she ordered. When the colony leader appeared on screen, Amy could see the worry in his eyes. Commander, we can see the alien ships from here. Are we in trouble? Pete, I need you to do something. For me, I need you to gather everyone together, all 500 colonists. Tell them to prepare for visitors. Visitors? Pete looked confused. I'm going to invite the Zephyrian commanders down to the surface. We're going to show them what we've built here. Is that wise, ma'am? Her executive officer asked quietly. Amy turned to face him. It's better than running away. These people deserve a chance to keep their home. 2 hours later, Amy stood in the main square of the colony. The buildings around her were simple but well built, made from local stone and earth materials. Gardens grew between the structures, filled with vegetables and flowers from both worlds. Children played in the streets while their parents worked in the shops and farms. Helen Adams, the chief engineer, had set up tables loaded with food. There were vegetables grown in the colony soil, bread baked in their ovens, and even some Locally brewed drinks? It looked like a community festival. Commander, Helen said, wiping her hands on her apron, are you sure about this? These aliens don't seem friendly. They think we're violent primitives, Amy replied. Let's show them what we really are. The Zephyrian shuttles landed in the square, their silver hulls gleaming. When the doors opened, 6 tall figures stepped out, their silver skin and eyeless faces making them look like living statues. High Coordinator Vashtar was among them, his presence radiating authority and disapproval. High Coordinator, Amy said, stepping forward. Welcome to New Haven Colony. We're honored to have you visit our home. Vashtar looked around the square, his head turning slowly to take in the buildings, the gardens, the people. This is not your home. This is a temporary settlement on a world that belongs to the Zephyrian Collective. Maybe it was temporary when we started, Amy replied, but look around you. Does this look temporary now? She gestured to the buildings, the carefully tended gardens, the workshops where colonists were making furniture and tools. These people have put their lives into this place. They've made it part of themselves. Emotional attachment does not create legal ownership, Vashtar said coldly. No, but it creates something more important, Amy replied. It creates a home. Pete Johnson stepped forward, his weathered hands holding a small plant. High Coordinator, this is a tomato plant. We grew it from seeds we brought from Earth, but it's growing in soil from this world. The water comes from the local rivers, the sunlight from this system's star. Is it an Earth plant or a Kepler plant? Vashtar stared at the plant but didn't answer. It's both, Pete continued, just like us. We're Earth people, but we're also Kepler people now. This world is part of us and we're part of it. Helen Adams approached with a plate of food. High Coordinator, would you like to try some of our local cuisine? We've learned to combine Earth recipes with ingredients from this world. I do not eat, Vashtar replied stiffly. And then just smell it, Helen said with a smile. Food is about more than nutrition. It's about community, about sharing, about bringing people together. Amy watched as more colonists approached the aliens. They weren't threatening or aggressive. They were simply being themselves, farmers, engineers, teachers, parents, people who had traveled across the galaxy to build something better. Your people seem, different than expected, one of the other Zephyrians said quietly. Different how? Amy asked. We expected warriors, soldiers, instead we find farmers and families. We are farmers and families, Amy replied. But we're also the children and grandchildren of warriors. We carry their strength, but we use it to build instead of destroy. Vashtar watched as a group of human children approached one of his officers. They were curious but not afraid, asking questions about the aliens. Silver skin and tall stature. The Zephyrians seemed uncomfortable but not hostile. Your young are not taught to fear other species, Vashtar observed. We teach them to be careful, Amy replied, but not to be afraid. Fear leads to hatred, and hatred leads to war. We've had enough war. Yet you refuse to leave when ordered, Vashtar pointed out. Is this not a form of warfare? Amy considered the question carefully. No, High Coordinator, this is a form of hope. We're not fighting you, we're showing you who we really are. And who are you really? Vashtar asked. Amy gestured to the colonists. Around them, people sharing food, children playing, families working together to build something better. We're people who believe that the galaxy is big enough for everyone. We're people who think that different species can learn from each other. We're people who refuse to give up on the dream of a better future. Vashtar was quiet for a long moment, watching the scene around him. Finally, he spoke. You have 24 hours to evacuate. The law is clear. As the Zephyrian shuttles lifted off, Amy felt a mixture of disappointment and determination. They had shown the aliens who they really were, but it might not be enough. Commander, Pete said quietly, what do we do now? Amy looked around at the colony her people had built, at the homes and gardens and workshops that represented so much hope and hard work. We get ready, she said. If they want to remove us, they'll have to do it themselves. We're not leaving our home. The next 24 hours would determine whether humanity's first colony would survive. The emergency alarms were screaming across the Andromeda trade hub when Captain Jake Morrison received the call. He had been in quarantine for 4 months, watching as the standoff at Kepler 442b continued when suddenly everything changed. "Captain Morrison, this is High Coordinator Vashtar," came the voice through the communication system. "We require your immediate presence in the main assembly hall." Jake looked at his crew with surprise. After months of being treated like criminals, why would they want to see him now? "What's this about?" he asked. "A threat to the entire galaxy," Vashtar replied, his usual cold tone replaced by something that sounded almost like panic. "Something we have never faced before." An hour later, Jake stood in the massive assembly hall of the trade hub. The room was filled with representatives from dozens of different species: the blue-skinned Mindari with their diamond-shaped eyes, the crystal-based Vorthan that looked like living gemstones, the gas-welling Nebulans in their containment suits, and many others he didn't recognize. At the center of the hall, a huge display showed what looked like a star map. But something was wrong with it. Several star systems were marked in red, and as Jake watched, more red marks appeared. "The Devourers have awakened," Vashtar announced to the assembly. 3 star systems have already been consumed. The Centauri cluster is next. Jake had never heard of Devourers before, but the fear in the room was obvious. Even the usually calm Mindari looked terrified. "What exactly are Devourers?" Jake asked. A new alien stepped forward, this one covered in what looked like living metal. "They are ancient machines, Captain Morrison. They were built by a species that died out millions of years ago. The Devourers sleep for thousands of years, then wake up to feed on the energy of entire star systems." "Feed on star systems?" Jake repeated. "You mean they destroy them?" "They consume everything," the metal alien continued. "Stars, planets, ships, all life. They turn it all into energy to fuel their own existence. Then they sleep again until they need more food." Jake looked at the display, watching as more red marks appeared. Each mark represented billions of lives lost. "How do you usually deal with them?" "We don't," Vashtar said quietly. "The last time they awakened was over 3,000 years ago. The galaxy lost a quarter of its inhabited systems before they went back to sleep." "But you must have some kind of defense," Jake protested. "Weapons, strategies, something?" "Our weapons are designed for peacekeeping," said a Mindari representative, her voice filled with despair. "We have not fought a real war in millennia. We have no experience with enemies that cannot be reasoned with." Jake felt his heart sink. These advanced civilizations, with all their technology and wisdom, were helpless against a real threat. "What about your fleets? Your military forces?" "We tried," Vashtar said, activating another display. "The combined fleets of 5 species attacked the first Devourer ship. Watch." The display showed a massive battle in space. Hundreds of alien ships, sleek and beautiful, attacked a single dark vessel that looked like it was made of twisted metal. The alien weapons struck the Devourer ship, but instead of being damaged, it seemed to absorb the energy and grow stronger. "They adapt," Vashtar explained. "Each time we attack them, they learn. By the end of the battle, our weapons were useless." Jake watched the display in horror as the Devourer ship began to systematically destroy the alien fleet. Ship after ship exploded in brilliant flashes of light while the dark vessel remained untouched. "How many ships did you lose?" Jake asked. "All of them," Vashtar replied. "Over 2,000 vessels destroyed in less than an hour." The assembly hall fell silent. Jake could feel the weight of despair pressing down on everyone present. These beings had built a peaceful, prosperous civilization spanning thousands of worlds, and now they were faced with an enemy they couldn't understand or defeat. "Why are you telling me this?" Jake asked finally. "Because," Vashtar said, his voice barely above a whisper, "you are the only species in the galaxy that still knows how to fight a real war." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "You want us to fight the Devourers?" "We want you to teach us," said the Mindari representative. Your species has something we have forgotten: the knowledge of warfare, of sacrifice, of doing whatever is necessary to survive. You called us primitive, Jake reminded them. You said we were violent savages who didn't belong in civilized space. We were wrong, Vashtar admitted. We thought our peace meant we had evolved beyond the need for warriors. But peace is not the absence of war, it is the presence of those willing to fight for it. Jake looked around the room at the assembled aliens. A few months ago, they had been ready to drive humanity from the galaxy. Now they were asking for help. What exactly do you want from us? He asked. Everything, Vashtar replied. Your knowledge of tactics, your understanding of warfare, your willingness to sacrifice for others. We need you to help us become what? We have never been soldiers. Jake was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Finally he spoke. I'll need to contact my superiors on Earth, and I'll need full access to your technology and military resources. You will have whatever you require, Vashtar promised. And the colonists on Kepler 442b? They can stay, Vashtar said. If we survive this, there will be room for all of us in the galaxy. Jake nodded. I'll need to bring in some specialists. Colonel Ryan Brooks for tactics, Communications Officer Stephanie Lee for coordination, Marine Commander Tony Martinez for training, and Dr. Susan Wright for weapons development. Done, Vashtar agreed immediately. 3 days later, Jake stood in the command center of the trade hub, surrounded by displays showing the advance of the Devourer fleet. Colonel Brooks was studying tactical reports while Tony Martinez worked with alien officers to establish training protocols. The problem, Brooks explained to the assembled alien commanders, is that you're fighting them like they're another peaceful species? You're trying to minimize casualties and avoid collateral damage. Is that not the proper way to conduct military operations? Asked the Vorthan commander. Not against an enemy that wants to kill everything in the galaxy, Brooks replied. Against the Devourers, we need to think like they do: total war, no mercy, victory at any cost. But that goes against everything we believe, protested a Nebulan officer. Then you'll die believing it, Tony Martinez said bluntly. War isn't about what you believe. It's about what you're willing to do to protect what you love. Dr. Susan Wright was working at another console analyzing Devourer technology. They're not just machines, she announced. They're learning machines. Every time you use the same tactic twice, they adapt. We need to be unpredictable. How do we be unpredictable? Asked Vashtar. By being human, Jake replied. By doing things that don't make sense to a logical mind. By taking risks that no sane being would take. Stephanie Lee looked up from her communication station. Captain, I'm getting reports from the outer systems. The Devourers are moving faster than expected. They'll reach the Centauri cluster in 6 days. How many people live in the Centauri cluster? Jake asked. 47 billion, Vashtar replied quietly. Jake felt the weight of those numbers. 47 billion lives, depending on whether humanity could teach the galaxy how to fight. All right, he said, turning to address the mixed group of humans and aliens. We have 6 days to turn a bunch of peacekeepers into warriors. It's not enough time, but it's what we have. What do you need from us? Asked the Mindari representative. Everything, Jake replied. Your ships, your weapons, your people. And, most importantly, your trust. Because what we're about to do is going to go against every instinct you have. What do you mean? Vashtar asked. Jake looked at the display showing the approaching Devourer fleet. We're going to teach you the hardest lesson humanity ever learned, that sometimes, to save lives, you have to be willing to sacrifice them. The alien representatives looked uncomfortable, but they nodded. They understood that their peaceful ways had brought them to the edge of extinction. Colonel Brooks, Jake ordered, start working on battle plans. I want options for hit-and-run attacks, suicide runs, and anything else that might catch them off guard. Tony, begin training programs immediately. These aliens need to learn how to fight like humans. Dr. Wright, I need you to find ways to combine human tactics with alien technology. We need weapons that are as unpredictable as we are. Stephanie, coordinate with all elites. We need to know exactly what we're working with. As his team scattered to their tasks, Jake stood alone with Vashtar. Are you certain this will work? The alien asked. No, Jake replied honestly. But it's the only chance we have. The galaxy is about to learn what humanity has always known, that peace is not a gift, it's a choice. And sometimes you have to fight for the right to make that choice. Outside the trade hub, the stars continued to shine, but Jake knew that many of them would be dark forever if they failed. The next 6 days would determine whether the galaxy would survive, and whether humanity would finally earn its place among the stars. The Battle of Vega Prime began at dawn on the 6th day. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Constitution, watching as the largest fleet in galactic history moved into position. 300 human ships flew alongside 2,000 alien vessels, all following battle plans that would have been unthinkable just weeks before. Admiral, the Devourer mothership is twice the size we expected, reported Lieutenant Rachel Green from her fighter squadron. It's the size of a small moon. Jake studied the tactical display. The Devourer fleet looked like a swarm of dark insects. Against the stars, at their center, the mothership pulsed with stolen energy from the 3 star systems it had already consumed. All ships, this is Admiral Morrison, he announced over the fleet communication system. Remember what we've practiced. Hit hard, hit fast, and don't give them time to adapt. We only get one chance at this. Colonel Ryan Brooks stood beside him, coordinating the attack patterns. Phase 1 units are in position, Admiral. The alien squadrons are ready to begin the distraction attack. Jake nodded. The plan was simple but dangerous. The alien ships would attack from the front, drawing the Devourer's attention and forcing them to adapt their defenses. Then the human ships would strike from unexpected angles, using tactics the machines had never seen before. Begin Phase 1, Jake ordered. The Zephyrian and Mindari ships moved forward in perfect formation, their weapons blazing. The Devourer ships responded exactly as expected, adapting their shields to absorb the energy weapons. Within minutes, the alien attacks were having no effect. Phase 1 is failing as planned, Brooks reported. The Devourers are focused on the main attack. Good, Rachel. Take your fighters and begin the harassment runs. Make them look in every direction at once. Captain Alex Turner led the first wave of human fighters, diving toward the Devourer fleet in patterns that seemed random but were carefully planned. The small ships darted between the larger vessels, firing short bursts and then disappearing before the enemy could respond. They're trying to target us, Alex reported over the radio, but we're moving too fast. These machines are built to fight fleets, not individual fighters. Jake watched as the Devourer formation began to spread out, trying to deal with the small attackers. Perfect. Tony, deploy the boarding parties. Marine Commander Tony Martinez had spent the last 6 days training mixed teams of humans and aliens for the most dangerous part of the plan. Instead of trying to destroy the Devourer ships from outside, they would board them and attack from within. Boarding shuttles away, Tony reported. First wave is heading for the smaller vessels. The shuttles were almost invisible against the darkness of space, their hulls coated with materials that absorbed scanner beams. They approached the Devourer ships like parasites, attaching to the dark hulls and cutting their way inside. Boarding. Successful on targets 1 through 5. Tony's voice crackled over the radio. Beginning internal attacks now. The Devourer ships began to respond in ways no one had expected. Instead of adapting their external defenses, they started changing their internal structure, trying to trap the boarding parties inside. They're sealing off sections, Tony reported, his voice tense. We're losing contact with Team 3. Keep pushing, Jake ordered, though the words felt like acid in his mouth. The mission comes first. On the main display, he could see the Devourer mothership beginning to move. The massive vessel was turning toward the planet below, where 47 billion people waited in terror. Admiral, Communications Officer Stephanie Lee called out, I'm getting reports from the surface. The evacuation is only 60% complete. Jake felt his stomach drop. They had known the evacuation wouldn't be finished in time, but hearing the numbers made it real. Nearly 20 billion people were still on the planet. Dr. Wright, what's the status on the special weapon? He asked. Dr. Susan Wright looked up from her console, her face pale. The quantum torpedo is ready, Admiral. But if we use it on the mothership while it's this close to the planet, the radiation will kill everyone on the surface, Jake finished. I know, the choice was simple and horrible. Use the weapon and save the galaxy, but kill 20 billion innocent people, or let the Devourers reach the planet and kill everyone. Anyway, Admiral, Alex Turner's voice came over the radio. My squadron is down to half strength, but we've cleared a path to the mothership's core. If someone could get a ship in there, Jake looked at the tactical display. The path Alex had created would only stay open for minutes before the Devourers adapted, but a ship flying through that gap would never come back out. I'll take it, came a voice from across the bridge. Everyone turned to see Captain Helen Adams, the engineer from the Kepler colony. She had volunteered to help with the battle and now commanded one of the fastest ships in the fleet. Helen, no, Jake said. We can find another way. There is no other way, Helen replied, her voice calm. My ship is fast enough to make it through, and I know these engines better than anyone. I can overload the reactor and take out the motherships. Core? You'll be killed, Jake protested. Maybe, Helen said with a sad smile. But 20 billion people will live. That seems like a fair trade. Jake wanted to refuse, to find another solution. But the Devourer mothership was getting closer to the planet and time was running out. Do it, he said quietly, Helen's ship. The New Hope broke away from the main fleet and dove toward the gap in the Devourer defenses. Jake watched on the screen as the small vessel weaved between enemy fire, moving faster than anything that size should be able to move. Through the outer defenses, Helen reported. Beginning final approach to the core. Helen, Jake said, his voice breaking slightly, it's been an honor serving with you. The honor was mine, Admiral. Tell Pete and the colonists that I kept. My promise, I protected their home. The New Hope disappeared into the massive mothership. For long seconds, nothing happened. Then the entire vessel began to glow from within, brighter and brighter, until it was like looking at a second sun. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. The Devourer mothership simply ceased to exist, taking with it the core intelligence that had been controlling the entire fleet. The remaining Devourer ships, suddenly without direction, began to drift aimlessly. All units, target the remaining ships, Jake ordered, his voice hoarse. Don't give them time to reorganize. The battle continued for 3 more hours, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. Without their mothership, the Devourers were just machines following old programming. The combined fleet destroyed them one by one. When the last Devourer ship exploded, a cheer went up across the fleet. Humans and aliens celebrated together, united by their shared victory. But Jake couldn't join in the celebration. The cost had been too high. Admiral, Stephanie reported, final casualty reports are coming in. We lost 137 ships, including 42 human vessels. Total crew losses are estimated at over 15,000. Jake closed his eyes. 15,000. People had died to save 47 billion. The mathematics of war were always brutal. There's something else, Stephanie continued. We're getting long-range scanner reports from the galactic core. The main Devourer swarm is starting to wake up. Jake's eyes snapped open. How many ships? Preliminary estimates suggest over 10,000 vessels, Stephanie replied quietly. Each one the size of the mothership we just destroyed. The bridge fell silent. They had won the battle, but the war was just beginning. The small Devourer fleet they had just faced was nothing compared to what was coming. Admiral, Vashtara's voice came over the communication system. What are your orders? Jake looked at the tactical display, now showing the approaching threat. From the galactic core. 10,000 ships, each capable of destroying entire star systems. The mathematics were impossible, but somehow they would have to find a way. We prepare, he said finally. We've shown the galaxy that the Devourers can be beaten. Now we have to prove that they can be stopped. How long do we have? Brooks asked. 6 months, Stephanie reported after checking her instruments. Maybe 7 if we're lucky, Jake nodded. 6 months to prepare for a battle that would determine the fate of every living thing in the galaxy. 6 months to turn a collection of peaceful species into an army capable of fighting the ultimate war. Send a message to Earth, he ordered. Tell them we need everything they've got. Ships, weapons, soldiers, everyone who can fight. What about the aliens? Brooks asked. They've learned the first lesson of war, Jake replied, looking at the debris field where so many good people had died. That victory always comes with a price. Now they need to learn the second lesson, which is? Vashtar asked. Jake turned to face the alien commander, his eyes hard with determination. That some prices are worth paying, no matter how high they are. The Battle of Vega Prime was over, but the real war was just beginning. And this time, the entire galaxy would have to learn what humanity had always known, that freedom isn't free, and peace must be earned with blood and sacrifice. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Vega Prime, and the galaxy looked nothing like it had before. Fleet Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the command center of Luna Base, watching thousands of ships from dozens of species preparing for what everyone knew would be the final battle. The moon had been transformed into the largest military academy in galactic history. Training officer Lisa Hamilton walked through corridors filled with alien cadets learning human military tactics. Zephyrian officers practiced formation flying with human pilots. Mindari telepaths learned to coordinate battlefield communications. Vorthan crystal singers studied the art of psychological warfare. Admiral, Lisa reported as she entered the command center, the final class of cadets graduated yesterday. We've trained over 50,000 officers in human military doctrine. Jake nodded, though he still felt the weight of what they were asking these peaceful beings to become. How are they handling the training? Better than expected, Lisa replied. The Mindari are natural tacticians once they understand that war requires deception. The Vorthan have incredible precision in their movements. Even the Nebulans have learned to use their gas form abilities for reconnaissance. On the main display, the approaching Devourer swarm looked like a dark cloud spreading across the stars. 10,000 ships, each one capable of destroying entire worlds. The combined galactic fleet was impressive, but they were still outnumbered 5-1. Admiral Morrison, came a voice from behind him. Jake turned to see Vashtar approaching, but the alien looked different now. Instead of the flowing robes of a diplomat, he wore military armor designed for space combat. His 4 attendants were similarly equipped. High Coordinator, Jake said, then caught himself. I mean General Vashtar. The title change is still strange to me, Vashtar admitted. 6 months ago I was a keeper of peace. Now the first command the largest military force in galactic history. How do you feel about that? Jake asked. Vashtar considered the question carefully. Terrified, he said finally, but also determined. We have learned much from your species, Admiral, not just about warfare, but about the courage required to protect what you love. Colonel Ryan Brooks joined them at the tactical display. Final fleet positions are locked in, Admiral. We have 8,000 ships total, arranged in the formation you requested. Jake studied the battle plan one last time. It was perhaps the most complex military operation ever attempted, requiring perfect coordination between dozens of species who had never fought together before 6 months ago. The Devourers will expect us to meet them head-on, Brooks explained to the assembled commanders. Instead, we're going to let them come to us, then hit them from every direction at once. What about the civilian populations? Asked Dr. Susan. Right, who had been promoted to head of weapons development. The nearest inhabited systems are directly behind us. That's why we can't retreat, Jake said simply. This is our line in the sand. If we fail here, there's nowhere left to run. The communication system activated, and Pete Johnson's face appeared on the screen. The former colony leader now commanded the civilian evacuation fleets, coordinating the movement of refugees from the threatened worlds. Admiral, the last civilian transports have cleared the danger zone, Pete reported. But we've got over 2 billion people in temporary shelters. If this goes wrong, It won't go wrong, Jake said with more confidence than he felt. How are the colonists from Kepler holding up? They're scared, but they're staying strong, Pete replied. They know what Helen Adams died for, and they're not going to let her sacrifice be meaningless. As the transmission ended, Jake felt the familiar weight of command settling on his shoulders. So many lives depending on decisions made in the next few hours. So many species looking to humanity for leadership in the darkest moment of galactic history. Admiral, Communications Officer Stephanie Lee called out, long-range sensors are picking up the Devourer fleet. They'll be in weapons range in 2 hours. All ships to battle stations, Jake ordered. This is what we've been preparing for. Across the order was repeated in dozens of languages. Human ships powered up their weapons while alien vessels activated systems that had been modified with human tactical knowledge. The peaceful traders and diplomats had become warriors, united by necessity and trained by Earth's children. Captain Alex Turner led the fighter squadrons, his voice calm over the radio despite the impossible odds. All fighter wings, remember, you're training. We're not trying to win a fair fight. We're trying to survive an unfair one. Lieutenant Rachel Green commanded the bomber squadrons, loaded with the new quantum torpedoes Dr. Wright had developed. Bombers ready, Admiral. We'll punch holes in their formation for the capital ships. Marine Commander Tony Martinez had trained special assault teams for boarding operations. Boarding parties standing by. If we can take out their command ships from the inside, the rest might lose coordination. As the Devourer fleet approached, Jake could see the true scale of what they faced. Each enemy ship was massive, dark metal twisted into shapes that hurt to look at. They moved with perfect coordination like parts of a single vast organism. They're not attacking yet, Brooks observed. They're studying our formation. Let them study, Jake replied. They're about to learn something new. The Devourers opened fire first, their weapons reaching across impossible distances to strike at the galactic fleet. But instead of meeting the attack head-on, the Allied ships scattered according to the plan. What had looked like a single formation broke apart into hundreds of smaller groups, each moving in seemingly random directions. Phase 1 complete, Brooks reported. The Devourers are confused by our dispersal pattern. The enemy fleet began to spread out, trying to pursue the scattered groups. It was exactly what Jake had hoped for. All units, execute Phase 2, he ordered. Suddenly the scattered ships weren't running anymore. They turned and attacked, hitting the spread-out Devourer fleet from every angle at once. Fighter squadrons dove between the massive enemy vessels while bombers struck at weak points Dr. Wright had identified. Direct hit on Target 7, Rachel reported. Their hull is breaching. Boarding party successful on Target 12, Tony called out. We're inside their command center. But the Devourers adapted quickly, just as they always did. Their formation tightened, and their weapons began to track the smaller ships more effectively. We're losing ships, Stephanie reported. Casualty. Reports coming in from all sectors. Jake watched the battle unfold, knowing that this was the moment that would determine everything. The Devourers were learning, adapting, becoming more effective with each passing minute. Soon their advantages would be gone. All ships, execute final phase, he ordered, his voice heavy with the knowledge of what he was asking. The Constitution, along with 50 other capital ships from various species, broke away from the main battle and headed straight for the heart of the Devourer fleet. They were the bait for the largest sacrifice play in military history. Admiral, Avashtar said quietly, it has been an honor learning from your species. The honor was ours, Jake replied. You've shown us that peace is worth fighting for. The capital ships dove into the center of the Devourer formation, drawing the attention of thousands of enemy vessels. As the dark ships turned to focus on this new threat, the rest of the galactic fleet struck from behind. The battle raged for 18 hours. Ships exploded like dying stars while others rammed their enemies in final acts of defiance. The space Around the battlefield became a graveyard of twisted metal and scattered debris. When the last Devourer ship finally went dark, the surviving fleet found itself alone among the stars. Of the 8,000 ships that had begun the battle, fewer than 3,000 remained. "Admiral," Stephanie reported, her voice barely a whisper, "it's over. The Devourers are destroyed." Jake looked around the bridge at his surviving crew. They had won, but the price had been enormous. Entire species had been reduced to handfuls of survivors. The galaxy's population had been cut in half. "Send a message to all remaining ships," he ordered. "The war is over. We can go home." But as the fleet began the long journey back to their worlds, Jake knew that nothing would ever be the same. The galaxy had learned the hardest lesson of all, that survival sometimes required, becoming something you never wanted to be. 5 years later, Jake stood in the Memorial Garden on New Geneva Station, looking at the wall of names that stretched for miles. Human names stood alongside alien ones, all united in death as they had been united in purpose. A young Zephyrian approached him, wearing the uniform of the new Galactic Defense Force. "Admiral Morrison, my name is Kethter. My parents served under you at Vega Prime. What happened to them?" Jake asked, though he already knew the answer. "They died boarding a Devourer ship," the young alien replied. "But before they died, they told me something I should pass on to you." "What was that?" "They said that humans taught us that strength without purpose is meaningless, but purpose without strength is helpless. We needed both to survive." Jake nodded, feeling the weight of all the choices that had brought them to this point. "What will you do now?" "I will serve," Kethter replied simply. "The galaxy is at peace because people like you and my parent were willing to fight for it. That peace must be protected."